Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Poonam Nahar and I'm back with another new video on how to build a perfect resume, cover letter and SOP. As I personally believe that to succeed in this competitive world, you must think of a perfect resume as an important step in order to achieve your desired internships or desired dream jobs. In this video, we are in conversation with Miss Ashna Jain. Ma'am is an advocate by profession and an associate attorney at Dua Associates, as well as she is a founder of Career Solutions, where she gives guidance to many students and young professionals. She guides on resume building, personal branding, and interview skills. In this video, we are going to discuss about resume, cover letter and SOP. Its structures, pointers, groundworks to be done before drafting any resume, myths about resume drafting, importance of headline, font size and all about ATS application. So stay tuned. And if you are just dropping in, then do subscribe to this YouTube channel and share this video to every person who is struggling to draft a perfect resume. So without any ado, let's get right into the video.
Hello, ma'am. I welcome you to my YouTube channel where the motive is to inspire many to have balance in their life as well as in career. I'm truly honored to have this opportunity to talk to you and take this conversation to every viewer perhaps watching us. Thank you so much, ma'am, for taking out time from your really busy schedule and sitting down with me.
Oh, thank you. I'm honored for this invitation. I think let's get started. I'm very excited for this conversation. Let's get started with the questions.
Yes, ma'am. As all of us are struggling really hard in order to get good internships, to get dream jobs where we can explore and learn many new things and into various fields in order to make a good career as well as a bright future. So, ma'am, what are your thoughts on a well-drafted resume and how does it impact on our career?
Okay, I'll give you a very quick answer to this because it's very basic. I feel that resume is your first conversation with the recruiter. So if that conversation is not proper, you're not going to even get shortlisted for the real conversation that you might have done during an interview, right? So I feel the resume should be tailored according to the needs of the recruiter and it should resonate with the recruiter. Just to summarize it in the form of an example, that say for instance, if the recruiter is asking for for somebody who's good at research, right? Or they're looking for a research assistant, then your resume should breathe of your researching skills. Like, you must have done some publications, taken part in some essay competition, or you might have done some previous research internships. So all those things should be highlighted in your resume as against anything else. So this is, I think, the most important thing while drafting a resume. Of course, formatting and everything is very primary, is also like very elementary. I don't need to touch on that. But yes, say for instance, if you're applying to 50 places, you shouldn't ideally have that one resume which you're sending across to everybody, because that doesn't make sense. You should have tailor-made resume for like particular kind of places. So for law firms you can have different, for research places you can have different resume. So that's that.
So does the cover letter and SOP also matters in order to safely?
Okay, so SOP is usually drafted when you're applying to an educational institution or for a research-based internship or a job wherein they want to look at the narrative that you have. Basically, SOP is like a storytelling competition, where you put across your viewpoint of, say, what have you done right from the time when you were in school and then you came to college, what internships and what jobs, etc., what work experience you had, and now ultimately, why do you want to work at that place and what do you seek to gain from here, right? However, a cover letter is like a bridge between, the recruiter and your resume. So if the cover letter does not highlight the exact skills that the recruiter wants, that person will not even open your resume. So say for instance, if they're looking for a corporate lawyer, right? And if your cover letter does not highlight your previous corporate internships, or say, your corporate honors at law school, or say some kind of publication that you might have done in the corporate field, the recruiter is not even going to open your resume. So basically, you need to put a lot of good and relevant keywords in your cover letter so as to showcase it to the other person opening your resume that fine, it's worth your time and you can open the resume safely because this person might be relevant for the position that is open. So I think that's that.
Is
So it's
this the
also like very important document in the recruitment process. Yeah, please go ahead.
it's
Yes.
just the bridge between our cover letter and resume.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay, ma'am. My next question is very basic, but still I would like to ask. Like many of us are still in confusion between the CV and resume. So can you just brief us about it, the difference?
Okay. Yes. So basically, resume and CV are in a way different. That resume is, and that difference does not usually lie in the Indian context. However, like a lot of students might want to apply to say places outside India also. For them, it's very important. So resume is basically a word that says that you need to summarize all your strengths, weaknesses, or say any kind of good internships, etc., that you might have done in a single page. So it can't even go on to the next page. So it's like a summary of everything that you have done, right? However, on the other hand, CV or curriculum vitae, as we call it, or whatever you want to call it, basically it's like a course of life. So if you translate it, it becomes a course of life, right? So it's an information booklet about you where you tell the recruiter about everything starting from your strengths, your weaknesses, your likes, dislikes, hobbies, internships, work experiences, volunteer experiences. So it's like a culmination of a lot of things and it's a booklet on you. However, a resume is like a one pager summary. Now, in the Indian context, resume and summary are used interchangeably. And if somebody asks for a resume or a CV, we usually don't even stick to one word or we don't stick to, say, an information booklet concept. We stick to like somewhere around 1.5 or 2 pages. So, somewhere in the middle of both of these things.
Okay, great. So, ma'am, what are the basic pointers one should keep in mind before drafting a resume? Like, what should be the groundworks done?
So basically, this is a very good question, and like not a lot of students do groundwork. So it's great that you're showing interest towards groundwork. So basically, first of all, read the job description. Okay, so like, what does the recruiter want? Like, are there any particular skills? Is there a particular kind of experience that the recruiter is looking at, or is there some kind of a publication requirement, or some say like some law firms like I can't name any, of course, on this interview, but like there are a few law firms who look for a lot of publications on your resume before even shortlisting you, some tier one law firms also. So you need to be able to, first of all, check that. Now, secondly, once you've done that, you need to check what work does, say, that firm or say a particular organization does, right? Now, say for instance, I'm applying to a law firm who specializes only in general corporate, right? And now my CV, say for instance, if it's very competition law heavy or say IPR law heavy, right? So it does not make sense to the recruiter again. So I need to do my groundwork, that I need to know what is the practice area of that particular organization where I'm applying to, right? So I need to know what do they specialize in, what are the kind of deals they're entering into, or say, what is the kind of maximum work that they have. Like, and for that, I need to be for that, I can obviously check their website. I can check if they were featured in any kind of news. But I feel that the most relevant kind of research you can do is by contacting people who are already working there or who worked there in the past, right? Because only they will be able to tell you in detail that, okay, this is the kind of work that we do. Okay, our website shows that, we work in M&A, but our work is mostly contract based. We draft agreements, we draft commercial contracts, etc., right? So those are the people who will tell you that, what work does the organization do and what is expected out of you also as an intern. So what are the kind of skill sets that those people have who are already there, who are already placed there, and what is the kind of skill sets that you need to acquire before you can apply to that place, or before you can even draft your resume. So say for instance, if those people say that our major work is contract drafting, right? So obviously your skill set should include contract drafting, like that's the one basic thing. So the no website will tell you that our basic work is contract drafting. However, only the associates working there will be able to tell you. So once they tell you all this, then you can incorporate it in your resume, and then you can draft it. So I feel that at least 4 to 5 hours of groundwork, basic research work needs to go in before one can start putting down things on the resume according to a
Great,
place.
great.
So yeah, that's that.
Yes, ma'am. So, ma'am, we would like to know what should be the pattern or structure of a resume.
Okay, so I feel the pattern that had worked for me since very long time, and I use the same for my mentees also, is that I start with say name, email ID, and contact number, and they should all be center aligned. There shouldn't be any need of a photograph or any fancy font or anything like that. Then, of course, and you don't have to mention your address till the time they ask for say somebody from the same city or anything. You don't have to mention the address. Then secondly, you can start off with your education. Now education should only include your masters and undergraduate and 12th marks, that's it. Then after that, you don't have to go into the 10th or other kind of educations that you have. Next column is for licenses and certifications. So say for instance, you're registered with the bar council, or say for instance, you have done some course which is really good, or say you for instance you've enrolled yourself in a CS examination, so you've done say a foundation level of CS examination, you can enter that there, right? So everything should be clubbed. So say for instance, there should be education, then there should be another head of additional qualification, or it can be termed as academic training or licenses and certifications, completely depends on you. Then comes your internships. If you have a work experience, obviously then first is the work experience and then internships. Then because if you're a law student, then ideally you should be having some moot court experience and some publications. So depending on which one is better for you, after your internships, you can put in your moot courts, then publications, and then other activities, co-curricular, extra co-curricular. If you have some positions of responsibility, that comes after that. And I think the last column should be volunteer experience, where you can just highlight if you volunteered with any NGO or any organization. I think, yeah, that's the basic structure that I always follow.
So, ma'am, like if I take my example, like I have completed 2 levels of CA, so can I include that?
Yes, of course, you can include that in your this thing, in your additional licenses and certifications. You can include that, and also like write the month and the year of when you passed out of these examinations, so that the recruiter also has an idea of what you were doing at which phase of your life. So yes, you can definitely include it.
So, ma'am, is there any structure for cover letter and SOP also?
Yeah, for I think for cover letter, I'd like to specifically highlight that you should always start by introducing yourself, like in a line or two. Then you should tell about your education. Then of course in that also like in a line, and then you should tell about your inclinations. You should talk about the firm a bit if you want to, but if you want to just get to the point, you should talk about that. I'm inclined towards so and so practice area of law, right? Now, the second paragraph goes on to the fact that how is your inclination showcased. So, highlight So your cover letter is never a summary of your resume. It is just like a sneak peek into your resume, right? So you need to be able to tell that, okay, since my inclination is towards such and such area, I've interned with so and so law firms, I published such kind of papers, I've taken part in a moot court competition. And at the end of it, it should always, end, the cover letter should always end with a call to action. Because if there's no call to action, the recruiter is not even going to reply to you. Now, what is a call to action? You basically tell that other person that, okay, this is the information that I've given, you can contact me at so and so number and so email ID, my resume is attached for you. Now what? So tell them that, let me know if we can fix an interview, or let me know if there's anything else that you want from my side, or I'm waiting to hear back from you. This is very psychology based also, drafting a cover letter. Why? Because um essentially what happens is that, as human beings, we all tend to reply to the last thing that we read first. So if somebody sends you a lot of messages also, you will just read all the messages and then you will start replying, okay, this was the message, and then you'll see, okay, fine, there were other messages also before this. So this is a very psychology based thing, that as humans we tend to focus on the thing that we've read the last, right? So if there's no call to action in the last paragraph, the recruiters probably going to get bored about it, that, okay, I don't know what this person is trying to ask. So in the last paragraph, you should always end by, okay, looking forward to hear you, or say, please let me know when can an interview be arranged, or something like that. So you get my point, right? That it should end with very vitals of your information, like, this is my number, this is my email ID, my resume is attached, please let me know what can be done further. So yeah, that's that.
Great, great. Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, can you brief us about ATS, like applicant tracking system?
Okay, so very good question again, and like not a lot of people know about it. So basically, ATS is a software that's ATS is applicant tracking system, like you've mentioned. It's a software that's run by artificial intelligence. Okay, now that software is used by, say, a lot of firms these days, wherein they use this software to shortlist students for internships and for jobs. Now, say if your resume does not qualify the ATS, it cannot even reach the human eyes. So, which is why it is said that more than 70% of the resume, never even reach human eyes. Like the recruiter doesn't even know about the existence of that resume. Why? Because it doesn't just go past the ATS, and then it just gets trashed in the bin by the ATS. So how that ATS runs is that, first of all, it cannot read, like most of the ATS. There are some advanced versions also which are not available in India, but like there's ATS cannot read anything that is beyond text. Okay, so the moment it finds an image, it finds a very design heavy resume, it finds a photograph or logo or anything, it will just dump that resume in the bin. So that resume is not even going to reach the recruiter in the first place. That's why so many students are always sending me messages like, that I'm never getting any reply. Probably your resume is never even reaching the recruiter, right? Now, secondly, the resume that is shortlisted is based on the keywords that you're using. So say, for instance, if you're applying to, say, a general corporate team of a law firm, right? So a corporate team would ideally, your CV should ideally be heavy with corporate words, right? Say, for instance, shareholders agreement, non-disclosure agreement, or say MOA, AOA, then, minutes of the meeting, or say, you understand, right? All these words that are related to general corporate should be there in your resume, because we don't know what is fed into the resume, right? Into the ATS. So the ATS qualification could be, say, that, if all 50% of these words are not used in the resume, the words that are fed into the ATS, then the ATS is not even going to accept it. So say if your resume is very well drafted and everything, but it does not have the right keywords, so the ATS is not going to accept it, because that ATS is going to feel that, okay, this person does not have the relevant experience, because this resume does not have those keywords. So probably there is no possibly a good internship or a work experience. So that's about it. And also, sometimes students ask me that, where should we get those keywords from? So first of all, it's very obvious, like, if you worked with corporate teams, you will know what are the keywords used by them, obviously, like that's one step. And secondly, if you're applying through, say, a job description, right? So they would have written something like that, we want somebody who has worked on, say, a due diligence related to a real estate project, right? So all these are keywords, right? Due diligence, real estate, and everything. So you need to pick up words from the job description as well. So, and now there's this one last caveat related to ATS is that, say, for instance, we don't know what is fed into the ATS. Like nobody knows, only the recruiter knows that what have they fed into the ATS, right? So, sometimes what happens is they could have said that, okay, somebody who's worked on memorandum of association, or the ATS could have been fed like somebody who's worked on MOA. Now we don't know, like both of these things are same, right? A memorandum of association and MOA, but we don't know what's fed into the ATS. So it's better to always write like the short form also in the bracket, like, you know, memorandum of association brackets MOA, so that the ATS can read either of the things that it wants to read. So it's a very hit and trial method. So yeah, but then it's still becoming like really popular with the law firms. So which is why our resume should be ATS compliant before, I mean, you know, it should be sent out to a law firm. So yeah.
Okay, great, great. Ma'am, are there any myths about resume drafting which we need to know that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, there are certain myths like that, you know, it should be of a particular length, say, for instance. I mean, I don't feel that this should be, you know, adhered to. If your resume is like, for so many students are of the viewpoint that if we are a student, our resume should only be of a one page. Or say, if we are a very qualified professional of 10 years, our resume should only be of 2 pages. That's not the deal. Like, it really depends on what all things that you have done, right? And honestly saying, the recruiter usually spends say about 7 to 8 seconds reading your resume in the first go. If he or she or they do not like it in the first go, they are not even going to, you know, read it further. So it really depends on what you're putting on the first page. Will they go to the second page or not? So it completely depends on how you want to structure it. Like I definitely suggest that, you know, if you are under say 5 6 years of experience, your resume should only be limited to say 1.5 or 2 pages, 2 sides of pages. That's it. And nothing beyond it, or like nothing less than it. Because if you have too less information, also people might feel, you know, some people are of the mindset that this person hasn't done really too much in life. So you don't want to give out that vibe. So it's better and it's safe to always use like 1.5 or 2 sides of a page. And that should be it. And like there are other myths also that, you know, you can um you know, if you use like a lot of fancy words in your resume, if you have like a lot of high profile work that you have done at internships, your chances of getting recruited are higher. See, honestly, this is like the worst thing that I've ever heard. Why? Because if you're a student, right, you can't be expected to know the basics of, like, not even the basics of M&A, much less that, you know, you will be expected to handle an M&A deal. So, you know, there are a lot of partners also which are not able to handle M&A, and that's when the senior partners or the recruiting partners or equity partners come into picture and they handle all these deals. So, you know, it's completely okay to not have like fancy information. It's okay to only have relevant and believable information on your resume. See, the moment your resume becomes too good to be true, nobody is going to hire you, because then they're going to feel that, you know, you're probably faking it. So that's that. So I think these are the top two myths which I would want to talk about. But of course, like there are endless number of myths. But yeah, these two should be taken in mind, yeah, very seriously.
Ma'am, does the headline font size also matters?
Yeah, of course. See, I mean, I am of the view that the entire resume should be of one singular font. Like, not even like any font shouldn't be in any other format. Like, if it's say, you know, any size, say for instance, even if it's 20 size and Times New Roman, like obviously it's not 20, but assuming it's 20, then it has to be 20 throughout. Because the moment you start changing fonts, or say, you know, you start changing the size of the font in headlines or in any other, say in your name or email ID, it becomes really irritating for the recruiter because the symmetry is broken, right? So as again, as human beings, we like to read things that are symmetrical in nature, right? We it's pleasing to the eyes, it's not irritating to the eyes. So you would probably want to give out more spaces while writing, and like, you know, have little white space, and probably you want to keep it symmetrical in a way that's very, like, I don't know how to put it, that's enjoyable for the recruiter to read. Essentially, it shouldn't be like a burden. So instead of say focusing on different fonts, people should focus on how they can give spaces between the things that they've written, so that it's not irritating and it's not intimidating. So sometimes I come across resume who are just filled with information. So I don't even feel like reading those resumes in the first place. Why? Because I can't read so much information as a human being, right? Because everybody wants to read as minimum information as we can. So instead of focusing on, say, the size of fonts or the font, people should focus on on the formatting of the resume. That's where the focus should be. So yeah.
Great. So, ma'am, my last question is, what does the interviewer looks into resume or cover letter?
Okay, so essentially, an interviewer basically wants somebody who can fill up the vacancy, right, their in their organization. So they would ask you questions related to the vacancy that they have, or say the things that they want to portray to people, or say the thing that they want to look at in their organization as such. So if I'm an interviewer and if I want that, I want a research assistant in my organization, that's what I try and find in your cover letter and your recipe, that do you have any skills that relate to me. So my focus, like your focus, if you are sitting for that interview, should be so as to make it so visible to the interviewer that that person who's interviewing you, the moment he or she looks at the resume, they should be able to figure out that, okay, I am suitable for this job, and they will ask me pointed questions towards that. So see, that's the point. The recruiter is always looking at somebody who's fit for the place, right? So if your resume or your cover letter does not have anything, say, you know, in synchronization with that, it really doesn't, the recruiter would not care about you as a candidate. So I think that's important.
True, true. So, ma'am, before we wrap up, do you have any closing remarks to our viewers?
So yeah, I mean, my only advice is, like, again, like I said it in the beginning also, don't try and think that, okay, a resume can be drafted, say, in a, in a way that's, like, it shouldn't be taken as a flimsy document, right? At the end of the day, your resume is going to land you a job, not anything else, right? So the point is to not take it lightly. The point is to actually put in the hard work into the resume and then send it out to the recruiter. Because see, there are 90% of the students, or say the fresh graduates, all have the same achievements. They all have the same any kind of, say, the internships or publications, more or less it's the same for everybody, right? So how do you stand out is, like, only on the basis of your resume, say, or only on the basis of your cover letter. So if you put in the required hard work there, then I think you're good to go. Then I think, obviously, then you're going to get the dream job, or say the dream internship that you're aspiring for. So yeah,
Great,
that's
great, great. I personally believe to have such opportunities where the conversation is so rich and where we can learn and understand various topics, which adds value to our life as well as our career. Thank you so much, ma'am, for taking out time and sitting for this amazing conversation. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope this video benefits to all the viewers and find it helpful to draft a resume cover letter, as well as do like, share this video as much as you can. And if you have any queries, then comment it down below. We would love to read it and address it. Thank you. Stay tuned. Until then, bye.